which it was a hook that they could see at the national level. You know what I mean? So it's something that usually a hook, it's a 6-word thing or less. For me, my life, I always wanted to catch kids before they fall. That was it. Short and sweet, very simple, but it resonated with them. So you think about what it is for you that will be the catchphrase, the thing that really resonates throughout, the entire process. And we need those stories, personal stories. If you look at that past National Teachers of the Year, their personal stories are amazing, but how they took their personal stories and transcended children's stories using that as a vehicle.
Just 2 things to say to back off of that. I agree with the phrase. I never coined it that, but it all begins with love is something I talked about. Love who you teach, what you teach, and everything else will fall into place. Like I use that in my application, I use that in here, so I completely agree with that. And another thing that they taught is like, if you have your paper in front of you and you want to look up and talk, put your thumb where you stop. Like you can look at my paper when we're done. I found everything, like all this prep. I bolded certain things, it's all bullets, but like there might be 2 words out of that bullet that if I look down at that bullet that's underlined, I'll know exactly what I'm going to say, and I don't even need to look at the whole, So putting your finger there. Another thing, if you have multiple pages, fold the top corner so they don't get stuck together. It helps. I don't know if it helps, but someone a while ago, Dr. Williamson actually taught me that. Where you speak if you just pull down that.
That's smart.
A few things to keep, and then and they like to cry. So they were crying with me at the state level, and they like that. For the students, it's true because you hit their heart. What are you going to remember? You're going to remember how you felt after you left. They're not going to remember a word you said.
Right.
So, and if you're tearing up, that's okay too.
Good, because I'm
And it's almost like with that said, it's like a photograph. So you think about, you're painting a picture for them, you're giving them a window into your world with those kids. And so speaking of, tearing up, it could happen, but if what you're delivering to them just might make them, then that's even a more important piece of it. And just know it going in, you have to feel your way through this up until Saturday. Go through it many different ways, but ultimately take all of our advice, but you've got to find you in the process. Like when I did my first TED Talk, that was the most nerve-wracking thing ever because I only had 10 minutes. I couldn't see a timer, so I had to keep it to 10 minutes, and I had to memorize it with no notes and make it powerful. So while I rehearsed multiple times the day before, they made us stand up there and do it with just like a sound guy, and I bumbled through the whole thing. I couldn't do it in front of one sound guy. Once the audience was there, I was great, but I couldn't do it that way. So you have to find what's best for Stephanie, and you got to make sure that you give them that on Saturday. Don't hold anything back out of that, and make sure you find your process between now and then. Does that make sense?
It does.
That's key, I think. I think that's, like I would share with Jeff, it was suggested to me that I change something that was way outside of my comfort level. And I did, and to me, that's the one thing that sunk me. Like, that's where I felt uncomfortable and I didn't feel authentically me in that interview. And I've always believed, I don't think I ever would have won state teacher of the year. I'll be real with you. The people I was up against, they all deserved it more than me in my mind. But that was the one thing that I think pulled me out of the pool. Like, I think I would have been in the pool if I had stayed authentically me. So make sure you stay authentic, because you're going to do it all year.
Right.
You got to be authentically you all year. And if you go in as somebody else, then you can't be authentically you the rest of the year. And that's not going to be an enjoyable year.
It's not.
So be authentically you. You are good enough. You're in the finalist list. You're good enough to be state teacher of the year as you.
This is insanity, because on Friday I thought I was going to look at that list and that I was not going to have to worry about a thing. I'm not going to be on that list. And then I looked at it and I like glanced over my own name and I was like, okay. And then I was like, wait a second. And I looked back at it and I was like, there's no way. So
do you want to start with your final?
I can. I have, it is my original speech because it is the one thing that I wanted to advocate for the most using this platform. So I altered it so that it wouldn't just apply to the county, but I started bringing in things across the state as well so that they could see how I would not only promote the state of Maryland at a national level, but also talk about what things I think the state of Maryland should work on or focus within the next year. Okay, I have not rehearsed it, so here we go. Are we ready? Is somebody going to time me? Okay. Let's not kid ourselves. It's a volatile time in education. Our world has changed, society has evolved, and there are conflicting opinions at every turn. The reality of the situation is that we have caregivers and community members protesting our schools. Why? Because they want what is best for their kids. We have teachers, administrators, and faculty members across our state going to Board of Education meetings. Why? Because they want what is best for their families and their students and their kids. Don't we all see the similarity in this? Everyone wants what is best for our kids and our future. That is what is or should be driving us today as a collective force. What is best for our students? The best thing we can do for our kids right now at this very moment is to focus on their mental health and how they are processing the trauma that they have been through and what they are continuing to see as the pandemic is unfolding before us. Let me be very clear when I say that I did not get into teaching for myself. I am here because I wanted to be an advocate for those without a voice. At the beginning of last year, I was placed as the 8th grade English language arts teacher at Southerland Middle School in Queen Anne's County, Maryland. I got my rosters, and even though I was nervous about this new virtual learning environment that was going to happen, I set out on a mission to help all of my students through what was going to be a difficult time. After a few weeks went by, I noticed one particular student drop off of the meet, and I called home, only to find out that my student was newly diagnosed with a condition that would change her life forever. Now, without getting into specifics, because confidentiality is a must, my student needed someone now more than ever before. She was hospitalized for a condition and suicidal thoughts. I met with her in the mornings and called her every afternoon on my way home. There's no miracle ending here, as she continues to battle through mental health and her current condition. Last year alone, I had 3 students enter into hospitalized programs for extended periods of times because of suicidal thoughts. Prior to the pandemic, I had students hospitalized for mental health, students labeled farms, students labeled homeless by the state, but the sheer amount that we're now seeing is immense. Every teacher across our state has stories, multiple stories, of students struggling through drug addiction, homelessness, mental illness, food scarcity. This should concern everyone in this room. These kids are our future. We need to help them now. I've had the pleasure to work throughout Queen Anne's County at Kent Island High School, Stevenson Middle School, and now Southerland Middle School. As part of my master's degree program, I also taught in Northeast Maryland at Northeast Middle School. I've seen the diverse differences of our state, but more concerning, I see a stark similarity. Mental health should be a concern across our state. It was a concern prior to the pandemic that was gaining momentum, and the pandemic only heightened the pre-existing needs of our communities. Now, more than ever before, our students need us to advocate for them. Before the pandemic, we were already in crisis. Bullying on social media, suicide, drug addiction, homelessness, food scarcity, and now the pandemic has only amplified these problems. Throughout this pandemic, I've worked tirelessly to help my students in the Sellersville community. I've put together backpacks with essentials and food, taken meals that I've made home, donated clothes out of my own closet to students, and just was there to listen to their stories of hardship. Not that I had answers to their problems, but just to hear them. We must understand that this pandemic has changed everything about what we once knew. Empathy is a must. Teachers across our state have taught students that are designated by the state as homeless, students that cannot connect via the internet, students taking care of siblings, students taking on jobs at 10 years old to help put food on the table, and students that are going hungry. In the past year, I have advocated with every breath for our kids. I joined and piloted programs for social and emotional learning, gave PD to teachers on how to incorporate lessons to allow for deep, meaningful conversations. I've written to the Board of Education many times. Pretty sure they know me by heart. Recently, I partnered with the Queen Anne's County Board of Education and the Department of Health to create a hotline where students, parents, and even community members can call in and connect to direct services quickly, because in our county, we don't have a hospital, which is quite a challenge. Thankfully, we are back in the buildings, and I'm elated to be saying that. As a state, we have started to address children's mental health, but we have only begun to chip away at the iceberg before us. What lies below the surface will be brought into the light as the kids continue to return to our buildings. Teachers need training. Our kids have been through trauma. We have been through trauma. You have been through trauma. Our kids have lost their homes, have gone through hunger, have seen parents divorce, experienced losses, and now we're seeing a political climate that the pandemic has created. We need to tap into state resources and the plethora of highly qualified staff throughout our state to gather ideas to help our students now. As Maryland Teacher of the Year, I will advocate to fellow educators that our role has to evolve. We must change and meet our students where they are now, not where they have been in our past. Instead of division, we must come together as a school, as a community, to help our students, our kids, our future rebound from the effects of this historic pandemic. Children's mental health is a pivotal start, and it encompasses many things, but they are all things we can do to have a positive impact on our students' lives. Isn't that what we all want after all? To have a positive impact on our kids.
About 30 seconds.
I sure do. I saw, and I said homeless. I noticed that I repeated homelessness, food scarcity, mental illness a little too many times. So I think I'm going to take that out. I said it like 3 times. So I'm going to make that note.
So I heard a couple things. I heard who needs a voice. I heard the fact that you didn't have a voice and teaching gave you a voice to help those who need a voice. I heard a student story. I didn't hear many statistics. You were throwing out lots of stuff about mental health, about this, about that, but I didn't hear any like powerful gotcha statistics that would be like, oh, I didn't know that. That's where you can tie in local to state to national. Because that's what they're looking for. They're not looking for the state teacher here. They're looking for the national teacher here. That's the truth. I noticed, you went back to what lies below the surface.
Will only be brought to the light.
A voice lies below the surface. That could be your hope. That could be something that ties in. The thing that I believe, let me ask you this question. Would you be able to memorize all that?
Yes.
All of that?
Mm-hmm. That's practically what I memorized for.
For me, there was a lot that started to go kind of all over the place. The only thing I'm missing, I can see all the things you're into, but what are you doing as an educator to make those changes? What have you done? I think you need at least one more personal student story weaved in there. You had one that hooked me,
Yeah.
and then it started to get into all this other stuff.
Yeah, I took the other one out because I wanted to use it later, but I can definitely.
Just think about simplifying the message. Simplify it down. What could you chunk out of there? What could you say that you go through in a paragraph in a sentence? What could you take it back down to? You know? Mm-hmm. It's like when I start paring stuff back, you think about like I think about Ernest Hemingway when he had to write a 6-word story. Have you ever heard that?
Yes.
Yeah, it was powerful. It was like baby shoes never worn. Something along those lines. Peggy Noonan, that Wall Street journalist, that summed up Lincoln's presidency with he preserved the Union and freed the slaves. Boom, sums it all up in just a quick, short sentence. So how can we get back to stories and some statistics
And take some of
that
the.
shows why you would be the voice for National Teacher of the Year? How are you going to impact the world and let the world see what's so important about social emotional learning, mental health awareness. What are you doing right now that could become a national movement? What have you sparked? I know you're heavily involved in service learning, but I wouldn't know that from that speech. I know that that is such a passion of yours. And that's a way that you've connected the dots for kids and need learning for, and I didn't even hear it. So don't lose yourself while thinking about what they want. We want to know who you are. Does that make sense?
Totally does.
Read that opening line. So just the first thing.
Let's not kid ourselves. It is a volatile time in education. I know. I went over back and forth in that one.
I love what you're saying about the voice.
I do too.
What about I am the voice? We need more of a voice, and together we can be the voice for people who don't have it. For example, my student, who I called her I'm not saying word for word, but you get it. I called her every day. I was her voice in her head. I was her voice in her mind. Her thoughts, I love the how were you the voice, and I love how you speak. You're so serious, and I can feel that intensity, but I want some warmth in there. And I am the bubbly, smile, first grade, kindergarten teacher. So when you said, I was elated to be saying da-da-da, smile.
I was trying to get through it so fast that I was like,
You got to that out, because there were some times where you talked so fast. Like when you were, there was a comma. There was 3 different things you wanted to say, you would say that real fast together. Or So some of my notes from when I did it was pace, gaps, show the importance. There's no reason why you can't start wherever you decide your catchline is. I am the voice. Pause. At the end, together we can be these voices, or we can be the voice. There's voices that need to be heard. So, are you sitting up? This is really silly, but are you sitting up in the chair?
yeah.
I almost want
I almost need to push something forward.
Because it's how you sit, how you put your feet, that's all really important. I almost wonder, does anyone else feel that way? I almost feel like it.
You don't have really, are you on a wheelie chair or a straight chair like
Yeah.
this?
It's a straight chair.
It almost
Maybe
feels
you just like a wheelie chair to boost you up more.
Yes.
Maybe you're up here. Are those better?
More straight up,
I'll bring in a pillow and I'll put it right behind me.
Or just kind of arch.
Don't you put a telephone book behind me?
Don't push your back on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in first grade, we say, what did it look like to be a listener? You're kind of leaning forward, and that's kind of how I felt. And to rewind, we should have said this to start with. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
So excited as a
I'm still in shock over the whole thing. I still haven't, it took me months to process that I actually got this far. So I'm trying to still process the fact that my name was on this list, because it just doesn't seem, I just show up for the kids. That's literally all I do. If they need me, I'm there. Whatever they need, I'm there.
But that's what makes you big.
So.
And we are all celebrating with you. That night, as a state finalist, state
Oh, gosh,
I
yeah.
want to celebrate you. I didn't breathe when they were announcing. I could have virtually.
Yeah, everything's virtual.
Okay, take that.
Enjoy that last year, I'm sorry.
I'm just, yeah. It's like, it almost seems like it's so unreal.
Right.
Just remember this though, when you're with them and you're doing this interview, and I know it's all surreal and why would they pick me, that type of thing, but keep in the back of your mind to keep that confidence level up so you do smile and you do come across as, confident, but they like you already. That's where you're fine. So just have that, be confident in that fact as you enter that space with them.
And it's not, I just do with the kids. You're calling kids, you're doing this, it's not a just.
That is very
So
true.
that's my thing. Slow down, show warmth, sit up, even if you have to lean over like this, whatever you need to do. If you're saying you're happy, be happy. And I love when you said, pretty sure they know me by heart. Your character came out then. That's the person I
Because
want
I'm
to see.
pretty sure they did.
I almost felt like you were mad when you were reading that. Like, I'm not sure if I was in trouble or this person was in trouble. And we get
Yeah.
it. It's hostile times, but I wanted more, you know what I mean? That
Yeah,
one-
you wanted the personality to come out more, and I was trying to rush through it.
Yeah.
So I need to pare this way back,
I don't-
so I can do that.
But if you look at these topics that are listed here, so much of what you talk about can be brought into those other
Yes.
topics. So don't lose what you want to say. Your message is powerful.
Okay.
But I do agree, you can talk, like even when you talked about, I was in this place in Queen Anne's County and this is what we experienced, but it's like this, you can bring in those stats, like this is
Yeah.
tiny Queen Anne's County, we had this problem, but that number on the state level, that number on the national level, this is a real problem we all have.
I thought I had my stat in there, but I didn't.
You probably pulled it out in order to get through everything.
Yeah, probably.
But you definitely have a lot of these other topics covered in your speech. So make that story you, make it personal, make it passionate. But I do feel like a little bit at the beginning, I felt more like you were lecturing us versus
Okay.
telling us your story and how it drives you.
Okay.
Because I think you have a powerful story with your experience and how it's driven and shaped you and changed you. But has it driven you, shaped you, and changed you, or has it helped you grow with what you already were doing before the pandemic? So that part of your personality needs to come through there, that this isn't some, I'm not this new teacher just because of this pandemic. I was this passionate teacher to start with, and this pandemic showed me how much more I had to grow in order, and we need to grow
Right.
to keep serving our kids and making sure they're getting the best of us.
Okay.
And I don't think what I'm going to say is a whole lot different, but, so what Barb is saying is, I'm not contradicting it, but I did like the seriousness. I like, because you had me kind of at the edge of your seat, edge of my seat, but I think you just need to balance it. So kind of a combination of what you both are saying.
Yeah, in some parts.
I like that, because I'm a serious person, but yet you need to
Right.
show different levels of who you are. Let that come out.
Yeah.
But, you know, when what you're saying requires you to be serious, be serious. But when you have something like.
When I say I'm elated, show that I'm actually elated.
Yeah, so balance it. It's
Yeah.
about balance.
Okay.
So, yeah.
But even the emotion of the story of the young lady, like.
Yeah, I try not
I
to.
felt like you were lecturing me about her versus
Yeah.
telling me your concern about her. So just
Okay.
like, I do like it's a serious topic. It does need to be serious, but let those emotions move.
Well, I like the idea
If you're not
of,
comfortable being a
Let
crier,
the
don't be a
passion come
crier.
out in a different way, yeah.
I'm trying not to. It's very hard. All right, so I like the idea of there are voices that need to be heard, because that is exactly what it's all about.
Why did you first get into teaching?
I first got into teaching with the idea that I was going to help students become civically responsible and become engaged citizens.
I mean, why you,
Why me?
yeah, like, what drove you into teaching? Like, what happened that, yeah, I think I want to do this one?
I really didn't know my answer until I was pretty far into college, into my history degree actually, that I figured out what I actually wanted to do. But I had a 5th grade teacher. I was in reading intervention from 1st through 5th grade, and they were pretty sure that, I was doing the hooked on phonics and I was getting frustrated and everything out. I just remember just hating school, absolutely hated it. Started 5th grade, and I had a teacher, Miss Jarvis, who, she just did things different. She got to know me. I wasn't just a student in her class. She actually cared. She came to my sporting events outside of school. She would call my mom, just not for just the negatives, but like everything.
Why don't you start with that
That.
story, and then hook it into the story about your kid?
And you say, just like Miss Jarvis, I have now begun to call my students. She was my voice.
Yeah.
like those powerful,
Oh, gosh, yeah.
that's what you need.
That's what you need. You need that story, because that story is real, and that's why you got into this.
Yep.
You know, that's so important.
And on top of everything else, just come in.
Exactly, which is why I'm trying to be so serious, because I am expecting, so this Saturday is gonna be rough, guys. Okay.
This is so important, is your moment to share this.
And you actually bring up a really good point, because what she does, or what she did, is exactly what I do.
And that was the same for me too. It was my kindergarten teacher, and I came from a broken home, and I'm still in contact with her.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
So you are the voice for people that, we gotta keep counting on that. And try to pause and not say, just,
Yeah, when you
No ums.
When you go through it, record yourself or test yourself out in the mirror. Yeah, write, if you write anything down that he's taking a look at, write no ums, uhs. I do that all the time.
Okay.
better just to pause.
Put a post-it.
It reminds me, don't do it. Because, it totally is, once that light comes on, it's,
I think what a key too is the concept of caring. You know, good teachers care about their students, and that came through when you started telling them the story. That's an important one.
But I think to be able to get away from the, if you do like they both said about your pacing, you know what I mean? And realize you don't need to fill uncomfortable silence with anything. Sometimes it's dramatic pause, it's a good thing. Sometimes it's time to change your pitch and show more inflection. Even,
Okay.
Stuff
two of us
that,
can't do wrong.
Right.
when I was in your spot, they said to me, this is exactly what I wrote down. It's okay to tap the table. It's okay to show emotion, to bring it in, to not just be this person that's holding the papers. Almost like we're having a conversation together right now. You know, I am the voice. Hopefully you don't have something like that.
Yeah, I took your advice on that when I sat here last time. I took my bracelets off before I entered in here.
I have a question. So I was confused when you were talking. I get it. Mental health, students, what is the goal in mind here? I would love where.
So I want the focus to be that teachers need more trauma training, and they also need to be it's called mental health first aid.
I need that. Don't you feel it? I feel like we need more of what the focus of having a voice means. More training on trauma. Having a voice means, like, if you keep hitting these points.
Okay.
What about the fact that you brought up, we live in a community where we don't even have a hospital, yet we need mental health first aid.
Yeah.
Find a way to hook some of these things together with your story so that they resonate. They paint a picture without you telling them what the picture needs to be.
Okay.
Let them start to picture it themselves.
Or say, how do you have a voice when there's no hospital in your county? How do you have a voice when, let me tell you how we have a voice, or this is how we have a voice, like these statements that are powerful. By asking those questions, exactly what you're saying, you're painting that picture, you're not saying it. How do you have a voice when you're in the hospital and supposed to be learning? How do you have a voice when, some of those things you were talking about,
Right.
to get that hook in.
Right. Okay.
I will always be the voice for my students.
And that's how you can move away from what she was saying about lecture, too. Move into a place where you're posing a question for them.
Is that rhetorical?
It's rhetorical, but then you also provide a little, this is what I do on a daily basis, you know what I mean? And it paints a picture of what you're doing too.
And I love what you just said. I felt like I didn't get that out. Like the training you're talking about, this is how we have a voice. This is how we empower teachers to empower our students, even when it's a pandemic, even when we're teaching virtually, even when,
Okay.
So here's a crazy idea.
Crazy ideas. Love them.
Well, I know you were worried about being redundant and doing the same things that they're asking, but like if it was me and I was preparing a 5-minute presentation, I would actually base my 5-minute presentation that would sum up, basically hitting on these points, like maybe paragraph 1 that I talk about would be starting out with my story and how it connects to a child's story. Then I would dive into challenges. Then I would dive into how we overcome those challenges through motivation and what I'm doing in the classroom. Then hit on.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Then hit on advice for other teachers, because what's going to happen is, like, they invite, until I took the supervisor position, they invited me back year after year after year. Darla has me going up, doing presentations for her in front of the whole teachers of the year, you know, teachers of promise groups and all that, with other teachers of the year. Some of them she still brought back from like 2003, like all the way back. And they want you to be able to bring some strategies to the table. So how would you actually bring something new to teachers that you're advising? And then it brings you back to the message, which gets into the a simple tagline answer is good, where you don't have to ramble on through everything. Like, some of the worst interviews for teachers even are the teachers that just keep going on and on through the question and don't know when to stop. So think about that end as the tagline, but then you could sum all that up in a 5-minute presentation using exactly what you have, just maybe reframing the structure of it.
And then elaborating as they bring it up.
And then you're talking about stuff you know, comfortably. Warming yourself up to the presentation.
Okay. That's a good idea.
That's what I said, offer solution.
Yeah.
Are we the voice?
Yeah.
Put that in your end. I'm looking back in my old notes, and at the very end, I said, I am Tamara Forte. I build the future. So more of that, less of why did they pick me, and more of this is me, and I am the voice, you know? So they can hear your line, like your name as a tagline. I am Stephanie MacKenzie. I am the voice. I will be the voice. I will always be my student's voice, no matter what challenges we're at. And I want to encourage, support, whatever your word is, all the educators around me through, you know.
Okay.
So I think this is a crazy idea with Mr. Tamara. If you put a few key points of what we just said, just randomly, like ideas, strategies, solutions, and push that aside and did part of it again. That's what they made me do. It's just an idea.
So I'm trying to figure out what.
The process on
It is.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put you on the hot seat a little bit, because that's what it's going to really be like when you're in your Google Meet, because you're not going to know what the question is.
Oh, I know.
So I'm going to ask you a question, and I just want you to answer it off the top of your... Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Given what we've experienced in the last year, if you were in charge of designing and running your school in the best interest of children, what challenge would you address, and how would you go about addressing it? You only get to pick one.
Given the current needs of our students and based on what I've seen in the pandemic, what many teachers have seen in this pandemic, I'm going to say that mental health awareness is going to be my #1 concern. Aside from the fact that we have students who are homeless, students that are going through food scarcity, students who are working at 10 years old to put food on the table, students who don't have internet and trying to connect via phone with their teachers, and students who are taking care of siblings while being frustrated learners. We also have students who have, unfortunately, not been able to connect with teachers for over 1.5 years. So we have a lot of students who are trying to process everything that they have missed, everything that is going on in their lives, their parents divorcing, their losses, the fact that they're going without food on the table, and the fact that they're just trying to be adolescents. That's hard enough by itself. So the first thing that I would do is start to make sure that my faculty knows that mental health is a priority in our building. I would start off by making sure that my staff is mentally health first aid certified. Because in a classroom, when you have a student who all of a sudden is wearing sweatshirts and you ask them, hey, why are you doing that? Because it's so hot, and they start pulling it up and you see cut marks, how do you respond to that? How are you supposed to respond to that? Are you just supposed to pass them off to the guidance room? Or are you supposed to actually engage them in conversation? What are the legal parameters of that? What kind of trouble can you get into? There's so many questions that teachers have because they just don't know what or how to respond. These are real life situations. Kids who are coming in saying, I don't have anything to eat at home. Do you have anything in the cafeteria? How do you respond to that? You've already built that positive relationship with that student, so just simply passing them off to the guidance office is not something that you can do, because that can actually fracture, if not endanger, the relationship you've already created with that student. So I would want my teachers to be mentally health first aid certified. And it does cost some money, but that is money well spent in the investment of our students and our future in our society. The second thing that I would do is start to make sure that we have a robust social emotional learning program. I've seen different programs across various counties, zones of regulation, second steps programs. All of these are great programs, but without making sure that there is a framework and making sure that there's some accountability involved and making sure that there's training involved for our staff, it falls short of what it's supposed to do. And if we really want to help our kids through what they have been through, this pandemic and the political atmosphere that they're a part of now, and processing all of these things that they have lost, all the things that they have seen, we have to train our teachers first. They need to know how to respond to these kinds of things. How do you respond when a student tells you that things aren't going well at home? How do you respond to the student who is hospitalized for the third time for suicidal thoughts? Aside from feeling like, okay, if they send an email to me at 10 o'clock at night and I don't respond, what's going to happen? Those fears are real. Educators across the state feel that. So my faculty would know that mental health is an absolute priority. They would know because I would have them mentally health first aid certified. I would work with the Maryland Health Department on making sure of that because it's a program from them. And I would also make sure that we have a robust social emotional learning program in our schools.
Do that in 5 minutes.
There we go. Okay.
You got it.
Do you have a story about a 10-year-old who's working?
I sure do.
I need that. Do you have a story about a...
Make that believable.
Yeah.
When you said it the first time, I'm like,
It's our ESOL population.
yeah.
And you can say first names, you can make up a different name. It could be Sue, it could be Sally, it doesn't matter. I had Esme in mind.
Okay.
And what she did was...
I think that's what I'm so afraid of, is that I'll slip and say a name. But yes.
You gotta make it personal. You don't need to give a name, but you gotta make it personal. You know, it could be a matter of, I remember when the 2009 Teacher of the Year, that was at the National Blue Ribbon Convention, Anthony Mullen, he was an incredible speaker. He was a former New York City police officer. He went back and became a teacher. And he was sharing these stories about these kids that would come in to meet this one young student who came in every day shaking because he was having alcohol withdrawal. And he would get into these personal stories. They wouldn't last long, but they were long enough for us to
really feel it.
We knew that kid, and we knew what he was doing for that kid. Making a blanket statement, like, you know, and we have a kid that does this, we could get to the story.
So instead of saying the student name, even if it's made, even if it's,
And if you're concerned, you say, let's call him.
okay. Okay.
Give it a name, you know, even if it,
I have a sixth grade.
Yeah, make sure they know you're not disclosing.
I might just say Susie and Tim. Just use those as my names.
I've got to go, but.
Thank you so much, Amy. Okay. So I want to run a couple things by you guys and see what your thoughts are on those generalized topics. So the first one, what I love about teaching, and it really goes back to that civic responsibility and the service learning. But it also ties in the personal relationships. So I was having a hard time going back and forth on that last one, the messages I might employ as Maryland Teacher of the Year, because I feel like I'd be redundant between the speech and that first question and then that fifth question. Does that make sense?
What do you want to be known for? What do you want the nation, as a national teacher of the year, what would be your platform? Because this is what you're running on. You know, as an artist, I draw a line from my life to my art that's straight and clear. That was my hook and my TED Talk. That's what I am as an artist. It sums me up.
Okay.
What sums you up? What is it that you're going to catapult this into a national platform that's going to have wings? Remember, you don't have to cram everything into this. The point is, you get in the door, you win this thing, then you can build off of that and you can do more with these things. But I think you need to simplify and pare back a lot of this because it's taken us in so many different directions.
Yeah.
Focus on big umbrella things, big things that have real stories inside of them that they'll relate to, and then they'll want more of you. You know, I want more of those stories. And when I say statistics, I just mean it from like a standpoint of, if I'm going to make a mental statement about how mental health is so important, drop a couple gems that say, oh, okay.
And I remember, so I had the National Institute of Mental Health. Those were the statistics. 1 in 5 adults suffer from mental health, 49.5% of adolescents.
And then how many people is that overall? How many students is it overall?
That's a great question.
Something that's just wow.
Right, so on a district level, this is this many kids. On a state level, this is this many kids.
And at the national level, which is what I'm running on,
This is how many kids.
Or as simple as 49%, that's half of every classroom. Hitting it home, you know? And what is civic responsibility? I mean, I'm the first grade teacher. You could have people that aren't as into, what does that look like? What does that mean? I don't get it.
It's like you're an engaged citizen. So you see a problem in the community, you help, you find a solution, you put yourself in the back burner in order to help those before you.
So you became a teacher. I mean, more than that, not the phrase
Civic responsibility.
What do you love about teaching? I am creating students who, what do you want them to do?
Are engaged citizens.
what does that mean?
What is engagement?
I am creating students.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
What do they do? I need more.
Who see a problem in the community and are able to use their skills to come up with solutions to the problems that they see.
So in first grade, we call it problem solvers. I create students who solve problems that they see, not walk by it, not ignore it, not wish they had the answer.
Okay.
Like when you
Right.
say those terms, I feel like it sounds textbooky, but you have every story inside of you right now. So think this. If each person who leaves your interview only remembers you from the stories you tell, because he's exactly right. Those speakers that I've listened to from Teacher of the Year events, from Teacher of Promise, I still remember some of their stories. I don't remember their points, I don't remember their catchphrases, but I remember that story.
Okay.
So to me,
Those
you can
personal
almost have
stories
a
are
story
key.
that fits in each one of these. What do you love about teaching? I love that the teacher who impacted me the most by being my voice, I now get to be like that. I am the voice. I am affecting the future.
You made the comment too that it would be expensive to give teachers this training. But think about that. If we invest in our teachers to help them help our students, we help our students become more stable and able to, it pays itself back.
Yeah.
So you could say this is an investment.
This is an investment in
That
our
invests in
teachers that
our
will
future.
invest in our teachers.
Yeah.
That invests in, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't say, I know it's a lot of money, don't say that right now.
Yeah, 'cause you don't want all of a sudden they like you, but then.
And then all of a sudden they're like, dollar signs.
If there's something attached to this that's gonna change, it's not gonna be good. Like you're talking about the first aid mental health kits. You didn't really get into what that was, or if that's just a local thing in Maryland.
So what it was created by the Maryland Health Department, and it's essentially certification in how to respond to something occurring in your classroom, and in order to essentially put a Band-Aid over it to help the students transition to the guidance office. So you're not just pushing them to the wayside.
So that might be a good mention. I wouldn't hang my platform on it.
No.
Simply because
Okay.
it's just a Maryland thing.
Right,
B, how's a teacher gonna be able to do that?
right.
You know what I mean? And they're really looking for more of you as teacher of the year, not policymaker of the year, or something that's gonna,
Okay.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But what Tamara was saying, it brings up a good point about what you were talking about service though. Like, you do that. You never once brought up the fact that, you know, I've also served as service learning coordinator at my school at various levels, and this is how I've been able to create that civic responsibility that you were talking about. This is how I've been able to connect a student's education into meaningful projects that transcend and transfer into things they're doing in the community and things that they're doing independently. I mean, you don't share much of that stuff because you're getting hung up on some of the other stuff that...
And then I'm saving it for other places.
Right.
Okay.
I think just today, take all this back, but really simplify some stuff down and get it back to stories.
Okay.
Like,
That's what I hear a lot of.
question they ask you, you should be able to pull a kid out of your hat and say, I want you to meet Johnny. Let me tell you about him, because this directly relates to this. Boom. I can tell you about this kid over here. I can tell you about that. And this is where I've made a difference. And this is how I'm who's the Mrs. Jensen?
Miss Jervis.
Miss Jervis. So this is how, you know, how you want to be the Miss Jervis. You know, this is how I'm able to pay that forward. So just think about ways to weave the story back. It's not about hitting on all these different points and then we're done.
Right.
It's really about spiraling a story back around and again. You know, think of the greatest films that you've ever seen that speak to you, and why are you
It's a tug at the heartstrings.
It's stuff that brings you around full circle.
So should I assume that they've already read those essays?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I just highlight points from there,
Right, because remember when we did the interview, we said, make sure you bring up
Those-
things to hook them back into the story that they
Right.
read.
okay,
So you don't have to give all the details, but enough so that they're like, I remember that story.
yeah,
But they didn't
okay,
know it was you when they read that story.
right,
Just to make that link, that connection. In your opening speech, when you said I was at so-and-so middle school, so that I don't feel that you need to list the exact school. You can say, I've been at the middle school level, I've been at this level. I think
Okay.
the whole entire interview is going to be made off of bold statements, I am the voice, and stories.
okay,
A few statistics to be those bold statements.
right.
And like you said, what?
Yeah, I'm not going to go heavy on them. I think,
Yeah, I was just thinking of something as a wow factor, not something.
yeah, no, I like the idea of, 49%, that's half of every classroom in the state of Maryland.
In my opinion, you could take 5 stories of students that have changed your life, or teachers that have changed your life. Have those 5 stories ready.
Okay.
And honestly, we can mold them into answering any of these questions right here.
Right.
What are your most powerful stories? For me, Tyreek slept every night in a taxi cab, had no clean clothes, come in every morning smelling of all kinds of bodily fluid. How is that going to, Tyreek couldn't tie his shoes, or Esme has no idea how she starts with E, but did eeny, meeny, miny, mo to try to find her seat in the classroom. And now I need to teach her. You know, these are the stories you're going to remember. Our state teacher of the year told the story about how when she was teaching art, a little boy got in the cart because he wanted to hear the rest of her story and went from class to class for the rest of the day in the cart. And I remember that, and that wasn't, I mean, all the things that bombard our mind.
Right.
So let's go back to what you said. What do you love about teaching, and perhaps a story? Your teacher. You get to be her. It's just an idea. I mean, these are the stories that hit me as you were speaking. Your thoughts and challenges as teaching during the pandemic. Go to that student that you call.
I'm writing down the names so I remember.
And then connect it back to the thing you just spoke about in the first one. Now I get to be her, like that connection. Motivation and important in your instruction.
There's a story there. Got it.
Advising other teachers. Do you have a story of a teacher that saw the cuts and went to the faculty room and cried, or froze on the spot and didn't know what to say back? You want to help them in that situation, you know?
I was going to bring up my student interns, because the advising piece, I was going to essentially talk about how when I was first setting out as a first-year teacher, I was gung-ho trying to do everything myself, because I thought that I was I was prepared, right? But I ignored all the experience around me. And so over the years, I've learned that collaborating and using the experience of others around me is how you truly become effective. And so with my student teachers that I've had, that's exactly the first message that I want them to know. And I show that because I co-teach. I bring in the paras. I bring in the ELL tutors. I co-teach with many of them. So I was going to bring across the fact that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask questions, and it's okay to go to your peers to get some feedback, because everybody's got different experiences and everybody brings something different to the table. And to be truly effective, you don't need to know all the answers. You just need to know who to go to for help.
And you could say that. Picture the first-year teacher that I was, or pick a name out of it. She's spending long hours developing these lessons to reach every learner, to do this, to this. But in the morning, after she spent all night working, she comes in and sees so-and-so in a sweatshirt. When she sees the cuts on her arm, all of that goes out the window.
Right.
And she doesn't have the training like you're talking about. But that story, to put them in that spot.
Okay.
And even in advice for other teachers, I mean, if they ask a question along those lines, you can even get into it. I mean, if you wanted to talk about some of the things that you wanted to discuss with mental health strategies and things like that, you brought up a few different frameworks and you brought up a few different things, but what do you do? What actually works? Like, you could share that, you know what I mean? Like, what do you employ that is the framework that works, that would be great advice for other teachers to try? In lieu of it, let's go get street training in this, let's go get state training in that.
Right.
What do you do?
And you had me hooked when you said, you know, I have built the relationships with these students. Whatever you do to do it, I have called, I have sat with them. I know their families, I know their desires, I know whatever you decide you wanted to say, or bring up a specific student. But when this happened, I can't send them down to the guidance counselor. But I can.
Right.
Because now I want to be like that teacher and do whatever I'm supposed to do now. Like, I want
Exactly.
to know that. You know, give me little tidbits that make me like, yes, I'm interested in. Get that knowledge that you have too, because that could help me.
Okay. All right. I got a lot to work on.
You have it all.
I and when you were saying, like, you were bringing up the different things, I started writing down names of students because I have the stories, I just didn't use them.
Go with their first names. You don't have to say Sue or Tom or this. Nobody knows them. You maybe taught them 10 years ago, 20, you know, I don't know how long you taught, but
12.
yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think you need to be rehearsed in all your answers. In fact, I found you more passionate when I asked you the question
when I wasn't rehearsed. Yeah.
Than you were in your in the speech that you read.
You were nicer and you were not.
Yeah, it's just, I think what is like in my brain and what I think I'm most worried about is it's on a computer screen.
Yeah.
So I'm a personable person. I like meeting people. I like interacting and having that like genuine conversation. I'm not going to be able to feel that via computer screen. So I'm just really nervous about this whole computer screen.
Just occasionally make sure when you're couple computer etiquette stuff, you want to make sure that you're filling up at least 3/4 of the screen.
Okay.
You don't want to be looking down on them. You want to be, it's
Like-
almost better if you're looking up a little at it.
So I might need to put,
Yeah, it's better if it's propped up a little, because it's a little more, it's even more flattering. You know, when you take a selfie and it's up here for a bigger one, a little bit of an angle isn't a bad thing. And then the other thing is, occasionally make sure, whatever you do, because everybody's done this in, your Zoom meetings, you're always looking at the squares, you're looking at the...
yeah,
You're not making any eye contact. On it.
right.
Occasionally, look right at that dot, look right at that camera lens, because that's you speaking directly to them. And do it on purpose, not all
Okay.
the time, but
So no ums.
for inflection, when you need to drop your voice or make an important point, right into that dot, because that's you speaking to them directly. They're going to see it that way.
Good point. Okay.
A strong statement.
Yeah.
And the voice.
Right in that dot.
That's 50%. You know, those ones that you would feel so strong about too.
Right.
You're right.
The ones I want to
Look at that rock,
emphasize.
It's going to look like you're looking down.
Yeah. Okay.
And I know we've all experienced virtual learning and Zoom meetings, and the group that you're going to be with wants to hear you, wants to engage with you, so you can. Let me rephrase that. So in the real thing, you're looking around, and they're just, it's a smile, but they
Right.
are engaging with you. They're just not speaking. So
Right.
you can make that eye contact, and you're probably going to be on a big, huge screen for them, right? So that they can really see
yeah.
you. And so feeling like you're making that eye contact with that dot is making eye contact with them.
So Jeff, is she going to be there? Is she going to do it right here?
Yeah, where am I doing this?
I think it's good that you're going to do it right there because you just rehearsed right there and you're so comfortable. And all these ideas are going to come flooding back.
And you'll picture us in these spots. And
Somebody give me like a trifold board, but like right here. No ums. Look directly at the camera. Stories.
how about breathe?
Yeah.
Pause.
Yeah.
So from girl to girl, are you ready for my question?
Yes.
What are you going to do with your hair for that? Because you've touched it a few times.
Yeah, I have a really bad problem with that. So
I
maybe
always
just
look
pin
at
it
that
back.
Because I don't want to touch it. At one point you were like, and your hair's so beautiful. I was like, looking at it.
I would be distracted by it. Yeah, I probably should just pull it back. Because I do tend to do that. It's my fidget. That's like what I...
And the other thing you do is you put your hands right by your mouth. There's FYI. We all do something.
For the interview, when I was sitting here, I was swiveling in the chair. That's how I was making eye contact. I was swiveling. I noticed that when I was watching the video the other day. I was like, I'm swiveling a lot.
They told me no bobby head. I don't know what
Oh my gosh.
Oh, there we go. No,
There you go.
no bobby head, no monotone, show passion. This is my nose. Pace gaps to show more importance. Use hands if needed. Tap on table or touch head. Those are those things I got wrong.
Well, I wrote down all of those,
They
so.
made me redo it in the spot when I was doing this practice, by the way.
Really?
They said, great, we just gave you all these things, now do it again.
And she did.
Okay.
I had no choice.
Was that a practice? Oh, here?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Like that. And they said, now do it again, we just gave you all these things. But we know this, you become more likable and more passionate when you give up all that textbook talk.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff you said, I don't know. Like, you need to picture that you're talking to grandma. Grandma, this is what it looks like in my class. I want them to become citizens because I want them to solve problems. I want them not to walk by these things. Like, I kind of feel dumb when I hear some of your words because I don't know what it means in that aspect, you know?
Okay.
And they will too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because not everybody there is going to be up on the jargon.
Yeah, do we even know, like, what kind of people are going to be on here?
Eight judges representing organizations including principals, teachers, local board members, unions, and higher ed.
Okay.
But I'm going to imagine local board members means not from the counties of the winning contestants.
Probably not.
And you're not going to be up on EdSpeak, so, you know, you think about, if you look at who a lot of the national teachers of the year are, they also aren't. You know, I mean, I could have a conversation with the best academic, but I can talk to the street guys probably more genuine than anything. So you got to be able to be real to them. You got to be able to walk both walks. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You're walking with your kids. You got to be able to feel that and see who you are in that classroom. Same token, you know, we respect you as a professional because you know something here there. But EdSpeak, those interviews with those candidates that I've seen, they would always fall flat for me. So I'm like, man, they know a lot about teaching, but they still haven't shared one thing that they've actually done. You know?
I want to know more about your service learning. That's just me when you mention it. Like,
Yeah, that's
what does that
awesome.
look
I
like?
know.
You're so good at that.
Thanks. I wonder why you're biased over there.
I've never seen
Yeah, so the service learning, so I grew up in a military household, so service to others was something that is deeply ingrained.
Okay, can we stop again?
Yes.
You said so 4 times.
Did I say so?
Yeah.
I've served to the end almost.
Because I am relaxed. I'm too relaxed.
Yeah, that's good. But you just gave us something that we knew nothing about. We
Right.
I want to hear it again.
Yeah.
Read it again. Lean forward like it's an interview. Talk to us. I want to know more about the service learning just because we might be able to hit it, you know, like where would it go best?
Okay. Okay. The service learning means that students are able to see a problem within their community and they're able to.
That's the lecture.
That's a different.
What are you doing?
What am I doing with
Service
it?
learning has my heart because, or service learning is,
Do I start with like, I am the service learning coordinator for my school and I have
I
been?
am passionate about,
Yeah,
I am passionate about
I
service
love
learning.
getting
as-
my students engaged in service learning because
Or you could say, as site coordinator, I am enthusiastic or motivated or passionate about it, blah, blah, blah. Like,
because this is another facet of your teaching.
don't tell me what
This
it's.
is
Yeah.
a piece that they don't know that you do.
Well, it all wraps together. It's the personal relationships, civic responsibility, it all kind of comes together.
So it's another layer. So here's another way that I'm able to attack, you know, one of these
It could be
questions.
anything. Motivate.
Yeah, motivate. Here's
Instruction.
another way I'm able to motivate my students to become more civically responsible, whatever, you know.
It's a way to hear their voice.
Yeah.
That's all
Yes.
coming
Yeah, bring
together.
back that, bring back.
Well, it's also a way to help them present their voice.
Right, so service learning is a great way to get students engaged in the importance of.
Okay. So I need to figure out how I'm gonna
Good luck, Stephanie.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay.
Got a lot of big chunks in here that we just need.
Do.
over the.
I think I needed to just pick 3 and just, or 2 and go with it.
Like Tamara was saying, if you have 5 stories in your back pocket, that's good to have. You might only end up using 3 of them, but at least you have different ones, because different ones might pop in your mind as being the right one for
Right.
certain question, a certain occasion. And they're not always asking you about just, the kids' stories, but they're also,
They're looking for mine.
like you should start out with that story that why you got into teaching in the first place. Like, I thought that was so powerful what you said.
And say, I struggled in whatever reading recovery program.
I practically gave up.
But say that.
Say that,
That's
yeah,
what we need.
I was in reading intervention from grades this to this.
What was it? I struggled to read basic words.
It was comprehension.
I hated it.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand it. Like, that's what you need to say.
And now what are you doing? I mean, that's a story of trying
And
to
now, yeah.
And that's what I do to help kids.
See, that's what you need to say. That exact under the breath thing, or when you made that other comment, I'm sure they know you. I love that person.
Yeah,
That person I want to root for.
that's why I do what I do, exactly.
Okay.
And that's what you need to think about as you're.
Glad I'm doing this interview first thing in the morning because I am like dead to the world at this point of the day. Oh my gosh.
But really go back through and think about where's your story spiraling through each of the other things.
Yeah, I think
Come back to it.
absolutely. I like the idea of touching on everything I'm going to talk about and then bridging that later. So that they hear my presentation, as they're calling it, which boggles my brain, but the presentation, but it's going to let me or lend itself to me expanding later. But still maybe hit them with a couple of the statistics of why these things are important. So that way, when I expand later, those statistics stayed with them, or the personal stories stayed with them.
It's almost like a big paragraph. What you start with is almost like your opening paragraph, and your message is almost like your closing paragraph.
Well, I'm after listening to all the feedback, I think I'm going to start with there are voices that need to be heard, that are currently not being heard because they don't know how.
Start with your story.
Start with mine.
Yeah, start with your story. Why
I
you
just feel
gotta
like
do it first?
I am the voiceover.
Yeah, because if you start with your story, then you can get into why it is that you're helping other kids find their voice.
How your teacher helped you find your voice.
And so on.
And now
I'm doing
you're
the same
helping
thing.
others find their voice.
And when you talk about your feelings, and don't say, and other teachers feel that way, or should feel, you know what I mean?
Right.
Just talk straight, like
It's just you.
It's you.
bold statements. Don't worry about other teachers at this point. We're looking at you.
Okay.
Should is a word that shouldn't be used. It's
Yeah,
like
keep it very aggressive words that have action tied to them, not any wishy-washy, should, you know what I mean? What are you doing?
No money words, investment is a good word. I like that. What are you talking about? And don't feel overwhelmed. Honestly, you could almost rip papers up. You have it in your mind right now.
Yeah. It's just all jumbled.
You already share your story. But unless we started asking you questions, you still didn't give us much of anything until we started.
It's too broad. Yeah.
You gotta get
Yeah.
specific with those questions, and maybe for yourself between today and tomorrow, start diving deeper into those, go back.
Start thinking about those.
Yeah, and then what are the most, I wouldn't even say the most powerful stories, but what are the stories that hit home for you the most? What are the stories that, I have certain kids that I'll share stories at PDs about that almost tears me up still to this day. So if it's still doing that for you now, it's an important story to tell. And make it relate to whatever this is.
Have you had a student come back to you after the fact as an adult?
Yes, several. But the one I shared during the initial interview was James. And I still, to this day, I remember him simply because he taught me, or he's a reminder of what I did right my first few years.
There's another point you could bring up. Sometimes it's our students that teach us things as well. If we're open.
What did James remind you of? Like, what you just said was beautiful.
So it was my first year teaching, and James was a student who was combative. He didn't want to do any work. He was getting into trouble. Lance Richardson was in the building for him a couple of times. And many teachers had just stated that, well, we've had this family before. This is just how it goes. And so as a first year teacher, I had a lot going on, but what drove me to really start to reflect and question was, why was this student not responding to everything that I was putting in place in the classroom? Why this one?
But what was James doing? I don't know what he was doing.
Refusing to do anything and being combative about it.
What's combative?
Combative means that he would up and leave, or he would flip a chair.
That's what we need. I don't know what combative means. It meant nothing to me.
True. Okay.
And that's strong.
State the obvious there.
That was your first year?
That was my first year.
In my first year of teaching,
I had a student.
how do you teach?
No, I had, okay, so I want you to meet James, during my first year of teaching, the student who made me reflect on why this one child refused to do any work in my classroom, would flip desks and chairs to get out of my classroom when I asked him to simply write a sentence.
Or just James would rather flip a chair than write a sentence.
And then and then
Today.
he is, well, he's currently studying sports medicine still. He went to Anne Arundel Community College, and then he went to University of Alabama. It's my favorite college. And he sends me emails every once in a while, because I still have the same email. It forwards right to me. So he's still,
You gave James a voice.
I did.
Instead of anger and action.
Right.
And look at that first thing again. What do you love about teaching, and perhaps share a story?
That's who I am.
More.
In my first year of teaching.
In my first year of teaching than I might have learned in my whole 4 years in college.
And I had that group of kids, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So I got to kind of follow them.
You're kind of just setting the scene.
So now you're back to the emotional well-being of kids and making connections and relationships
And not giving up.
and not giving up.
What
And
meant to you when you were a student that was struggling?
And that Ms. Jarvis did not give up.
you helped James.
Because I was that student. I wasn't combative, but
Well, you could say, because I was that student.
I refused to do any work.
I refused to do my work.
I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to fail the teacher. I didn't want to fail myself. I didn't want to fail my parents. So I just refused to do anything.
So what you just said right now, you need more. I don't want combative. That doesn't make sense.
Okay.
But that phrase you just said, that was perfect. And the girl you left, we need names. I just feel like now I know James more because you gave him a name.
Yes.
But the girl that you talked to on the phone as you're driving home, she needs a name, first of all. And
Okay.
don't just leave it as, there's no miracle story to her ending. That's what you said in that beginning.
Right.
Where is she now? Do you still talk to her?
Yep.
Do you hope that
Called her on my way here.
she's back? And
She's a virtual learner now, which I guess they started just today. I didn't realize that.
So give her a name and don't say, there's no miracle ending. Say, I am still on the phone with her every day or I talked to her on the phone in preparation for this interview. I will continue to talk to her and I will not give up because I was in that position. She needs a voice now or whatever she is.
Okay.
What you love about teaching is you're giving kids voices.
Yes. And I'm not giving up on them,
You're not giving-
no matter how difficult they get.
You're helping them change their story.
Right.
And advising teachers, our students are teaching us. You just said it. He taught you more in a year in that time. And these students that are crying for help are teaching us how to be better teachers.
And you bring up a story from your first year teaching, only because right now we're in an environment where it's everybody's first year teaching.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Really tied into that.
And I think, I heard you talk about your student teachers, but I love new teachers because
Yes.
they bring a new passion. They don't have the burnout. When you sit down and talk to a new teacher, you're not hearing, like
Yeah.
all the nastiness about the administration, the board of ed.
There's no tarnishment there.
Oh, I learned how to do this, or and that's why I love Teachers of the Year, because you get that group that's got great stories of ways of approaching things and being problem solvers, which you're, versus just waiting for my retirement day.
Okay.
Go away, 'cause I don't want to hear negative Nancy.
Yeah.
There's enough negativity in my room with the problems the kids are having. I want to be the positive force in that room. So that's why I love new teachers, because they always have something new to teach me.
Yeah, and what you're doing with centering your philosophy around teaching, around mental health, helping students, and being cognizant of it, you're being proactive as opposed to reactive in the classroom at all times. And that's making all the difference in the world.
When you talk about your interns, Stephanie, I loved what you said, that they come in basically thinking they know everything, because that's true. And I think a lot of us were in that position,
Yeah.
especially when you do really well at school or you have a natural knack for teaching. And sometimes your voice needs to be quieted so you can hear, and that's kind of what you were saying, so you can hear everyone else around you. It could be your students that are crying out with the cuts on their arm. It could be the coworkers you're working with that just have these special talents and wisdom. Just something about knowing when your voice needs to help others, when it needs to quiet. I feel like there's a real good theme through every one of these now.
There's way too many ideas in your head now.
No.
You have to collect them for
But
yourself.
it's so interesting because you're actually pointing out what I am doing right. Because oftentimes people will ask you, well, what are you doing? And I just kind of stare at them. I'm like, I don't know how to respond to that.
Well, as teachers, we don't brag, and Barbara's so good at saying this all the time. As teachers, we don't brag about ourselves. But when
Right.
you go into that interview on Saturday, we are all cheering you on. You are representing every single teacher in our county, in the state of Maryland. So you need to go in bragging through these students. You are not the best teacher in the whole entire world, but you are bringing every talent and every amazing thing that these teachers in our county and our state have ever done. We are future makers, future changers. We are not giving up on these students. We are, that's what your pride is in right now.
And sometimes it's easy to talk about what you've done by talking about your students. I grew up in a military family too. It's about service. You're not
Yeah.
there to get it's not about how many.
You're
medals
not-
I'm
right.
getting. No, it's not there. This is my job. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what political party you belong to. It doesn't matter what religion you are. I'm here to serve you to make sure that you have.
Glad you understand that. Yes. That's exactly it.
And that's what you're doing for your students, but you're modeling for them how they can do that for their community as well. So talking about their successes and saying, it's hard, throwing in that I was able to show them this, or I was able to bring this service learning opportunity, or I was able just to listen.
Okay.
But you could bring up that military hook and the family that you grew up in and how your family and how you as a human being, you were rooted in service. So it was very natural for me to extend my role in education and also serve as our district service learning coordinator and bring service learning opportunities for our students so that they can make those same connections that I grew up personally.
When you talk about you struggling as a reader, anyone, or struggling as a learner, anyone in that Zoom who struggled now is cheering for you more. When you talk about yourself as a military family who struggled because you didn't want to fail, or you didn't want to do this, all those people who didn't want to fail now are rooting for you. When you share these stories of your struggles, of your past, they want to root for you. You know, your failures are what touch other people and teach other people.
And that is so true with you needing to really make sure that you don't just slip that in at the beginning. Let that be the opening, that story that you shared about that teacher recognizing what because they will run with that. Because if you look at many past national teachers of the year, they all have some extremely personal story that they went almost from rags to riches in some way with the classroom, with what they do. And they will love hearing that. But
basically from like crack hacks. Like I've heard stories of like being born to a crack mom.
Yes, here I am.
Rising up. Okay.
So you need to make sure that that's a point you drive home, and because we had to dig it out of you. You weren't even comfortable talking about it.
No, it's not something I don't like. Well, I don't know. It's not natural to share that point.
Well, and I have a broken past, and I don't like to talk about it.
Right.
Because right now I'm a put together parent, teacher.
Right, exactly.
This is who I am now, but this is not what made me get to this spot,
Right.
So the days where I struggled to have clean clothes in my own personal life, Tyreek, who came in from that taxi cab, I am sure he had clean underwear, clean shoes, clean this, and that's who makes me the way I am. And that struggle made me this way. Otherwise, he would have come in and I would have just gone on with the lesson because I wouldn't know what it's like to struggle. And you're reading. You know what it's like to struggle.
The struggle is your story, and you bring your strength from that through what you're sharing.
So as a military brat, how many schools were you in those first 4 years of school that when you weren't learning?
2, 3.
So you didn't make the emotional...
I was in my 4th one.
You didn't make the emotional connection with your students, with your teachers. Like,
Oh,
there was
no.
relationship there because...
Or I would leave 6 months into the school year.
People are like, why don't you have best friends all across the country? I'm like, are you kidding?
Or even now, like, why don't you have lifelong girlfriends or something?
We were moving so much. My sister's my best friend. She is my best friend.
I was an only child.
We had our own little family.
It's okay.
That went along with us. But you didn't make those, so can you see that connection now to our kids in this pandemic? That year and a half they lost those connections with their teachers.
So it's like being bounced around because they didn't have...
And this is why, because they didn't have that
new
connection.
school. It's like coming in as a kindergartner in a new situation. How do we learn? What does it look like to learn this way? If you don't have those connections, and say it. It took me this many schools and this many years to meet Mrs. Jervis to make that connection.
Which was a fluke.
But that's something that you didn't share until you dug some more, and that should be right in there.
That should be right up front. Oh, gosh. So do I start crying right then? Or do I wait? Because if you noticed, it came. So.
By the time I got to my 4th school, and my teachers discovered that I was this far behind, and I met this, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta find a way to weave the story in. So it's natural.
And how about this? Your other teachers didn't see the problem. They weren't solving the problem, which is what you teach your students to do every day.
Y'all figured me out already, and I haven't even figured myself out.
I love stories. I love broken.
Yeah.
I love challenges and overcoming. Like, that is me.
Well, there
I
it
like
is.
what makes people the way they are.
That's exactly why I that's why I advocate for everything that I do. Okay. Thank you for connecting those dots, because honestly, when people ask me, how do you run a classroom? That's just so vague and generalized. What do you do?
You need to connect these dots
And that's what's going to make it powerful.
I'm the teacher I needed so many years ago. I'm the teacher I needed so many years ago. I am the teacher that teaches to the struggling. I am the teacher that teaches to the failing. I am the voice.
I am the teacher that makes the relationship before I worry about teaching.
That is very true.
I am the teacher that will not just send you to the guidance counselor. These are bold statements. You can say it exactly like that.
I still get in trouble because I don't know how to fill out a referral form. I'm like, I've been teaching in this school for 15 years. I don't know how to fill it out because I don't use it. I solve my problems with my kids.
Yeah, well, I was made fun of during a PD just last week because they were like, oh, we're going to go over referrals. Mackenzie, you don't need to be here. And I was like, thanks, guys. Handle everything in-house.
You signed it in the wrong spot.
As soon as I send it outside the house, I don't have control over that.
Yeah. It wasn't until I had a full blown out fight that they made me fill one
Yeah.
out, that I had to fill one out. I was like, I tried it. I'm sorry.
Please stop flipping the desk. Please don't make me do it. Come on. Okay. Well, you guys have given me some amazing feedback. Good gracious.
You got this.
Talk like a cat, Holly.
I need to, well, what I'm hearing, and tell me if I'm, so what I'm hearing is I need to include those personal stories and stop with all the jargon.
We don't need jargon.
Right. You need the personal stories because you want to know who I am and what I've been through.
I still can't even tell the word you said. Civil. Blah, blah, blah.
Civic.
Because I teach first grade. You don't
No,
use that.
no, you don't.
But problem solving, I know that.
Yep.
And you can say, from the minute students come in to school, they need to be problem solvers. You don't have to use my word, but that's what I would use. How many
That's why we
adults
do what we do.
know that don't solve problems or are struggling because they solve problems or don't have a voice to solve problems?
The personal stories. Connect that to, well, good gracious. So,
Service learning, where you're teaching
Yeah.
kids how to connect learning to purpose and to community.
Bold
And
statement.
bringing a voice, keep on that good voice.
I want students to know they can use their voice beyond the classroom. I teach service learning how many days a week, whatever it is. I teach service learning late hours at night because it is vital to, or because, I want to see into your life. And remember, keep thinking to yourself, I am Stephanie MacKenzie, bam, what do you do?
And they won't know it unless you share it. So you may have some stuff on some pieces of paper that they read, but they actually want to hear more from you so they can really see you. It's like getting to know somebody for the first time. After you get to know them, their face kind of changes. You ever had that happen?
yeah.
Your personality coming forward. Make sure they see who you really are. Allow that to come through from the heart.
I'm Stephanie MacKenzie.
Without crying too much.
I am the voice, and I will not stop being the voice. I am the
If
voice.
you start to cry, 'cause then if
I mean, I'm going to. Did you see me already? And I didn't even get to, goodness, the student that I lost to an opioid overdose, I didn't even get to, I didn't get to any of that because I took that out because I didn't want to.
keep it simple, because then you're running on too many different platforms, too many different things going on.
Okay.
Keep it down
Mental
to
health.
One thing, you need one big thing.
One big thing.
She has her thing, a voice.
She does.
You have it.
Yeah.
I would still, there's 5 questions here. I'd still make sure you have those 5 names of those students. Whatever, the student you lost, put his name down. This one.
Be the voice. And and then everything else will fall in.
Back into,
Because you can.
And just think, when you get towards question 5, and you get towards the end of the interview, remember, try to find a way to bring it back to where you started. This is why you teach like that teacher who did this.
Why my message
Yeah,
is-
bring it back. Bring it full circle.
Can there be a timer for her? Yeah, sure.
I think they're gonna have to show her the time somehow. I'm trying to remember.
Is it 5 minutes a question? Is that what
It's
it-
5 per question.
And I want to say that we had a timer that ran in the live interview, just like you would run.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
So I'm sure they're probably going to have a screen that just has a timer.
Because that's why we did it that way.
Just take them on a journey.
Okay.
Best advice, take them on a journey. Don't be afraid of the uncomfortable pauses. Don't try to fill the silence with, just pause, take a minute, make sure you gather your thoughts. A second to you may seem like an eternity, but it's nothing to them who are watching you through, could even be a little bit of a laugh. So just,
Right.
take your time.
Yeah, I'm going to start out with my why.
Yeah.
I was the student.
Yep.
Okay.
As a student, you need to-
I was the student.
I was
made
the
difference in
struggling reading
Yep.
student.
And the success as a teacher, I've made the difference in James's life. He's the success. Now in this pandemic, we have even more problems. Your young lady, and we still have to keep giving them the voice. We need to keep showing them that with that voice.
That's all it is. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And I will be the voice for the teacher who needs help with her students who've had trauma. I'll be the voice because we need training, because we need blah, blah, blah. It doesn't have to be a kit. Like, I don't even need to know the kit you're going to use.
No.
Right. You just need to know that I'm going to be
I don't
there.
need to know that MSDE sponsors it. Like, I don't need to know that. But I need to know that I need more training. I need to know that I need help, like all those kind of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Okay. That's really it.
All right, we completely overwhelmed you.
No, actually, you've narrowed it down.
Well, we narrowed it down, but now you.
Now I just need to figure this out. That's fine. I've got 3 days. It's fine.
And I love what you were saying about the ending needs to wrap the beginning, because then
Right.
it takes it from this person who just rambled, oh my gosh, I don't know where she is concise. She started, she gave us examples, she tied it all together. That looks so much
Yeah.
better.
The pretty package with the bow on top.
But also, I have meaning. Everything I told you now has this one purpose.
There's a reason for those stories. They're all interconnected. They all may be vastly different, and they may cover different areas, different points in time, at different points in my career. But it all ties back to this.
And it says, like, I didn't get off on a tangent, you know?
Yeah.
Right, because I felt like that's what I was doing.
And we see, I mean, us sitting here with you this amount of time, we see the theme. We see how not only is it your passion and your drive, but it motivates everything you do.
I didn't even realize it
And
was
you can
there.
see that.
Don't because you live it.
Yeah.
We're looking at it from afar, and we've also.
I just can't believe that that's what it is. Like, it really is. That's why.
So this is why we say that Teacher of the Year is a family. Because honestly, you could reach out to anyone who's been in this position with a question. You could ask to do coffee. We would be there for you because we're supporting you and we're cheering you on. And you are every one of us when you interview on Saturday. You are, and more. We believe in you. You just need to believe in you now.
You just need to be you.
And your
And everybody
students.
else will believe in you.
Can I bring my students in here? Can they sit? Is that a possibility? Like, hey, guys. Oh, gosh. Okay.
Believe me, you are bringing them with you. They're all going to be right there. In your heart, throughout the whole thing.
Do you have any other questions, like technical questions that we didn't answer?
What should I wear?
If it was me, I
So-
wouldn't do lazy, I would do plain.
I was gonna do like something with a blazer and just,
I love blazers.
yeah, me too.
With me, I did a pop of color, so I love color. This isn't actually, I can see out of color.
Yes, you do.
I had bright pink, and then I had black and white striped blazer, which some people would have been, oh, that's, but I was in person. But at the same time, you want your personality to go through. So I would have never gone more all black. That's just not me.
It's gonna be hard to show up on camera too, like whenever I had to do stuff on camera, they always told us to avoid just your neutral, straight up colors, to have a little pop of something. Because you're gonna be in this brown boardroom, I would maybe do a pop of blue, or something that accents brown.
What color are your eyes? This sounds silly, but what color are they?
They're hazel.
Bluish.
A green shirt, a pink shirt, anything besides brown, beige, whatever.
Like green, like a forest green. Would that work?
Whatever color you love. I love pink. I wear pink. I love bright colors.
Would green and white be too much?
White blazer.
Yep,
It's our colors for our county too.
kind of is. Okay.
You know what I do sometimes is she's gonna laugh at me specifically. Take a picture, just a random picture, and look and see what it comes like on your camera. And like take 2 different outfits, you'll know right away when you look at it.
You don't know what you feel comfortable speaking to.
Well, that white blazer was what I wore to the interview, and I felt very comfortable in that, so. Okay. I just don't want to wear the exact same outfit.
But
Might
they
look a
don't
little
know.
tacky. Well, it's the picture. They took the picture that night.
They may not even.
They may not have even looked.
Well, it could be an excuse to go shopping, just saying.
I'm just saying. I like that excuse.
A little retail therapy to make you feel better.
You can do it.
Got this.
Tell yourself that. I got this. Everything I know, I need to know is in my head already.
It is.